Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our regular Sunday meeting. It's 6 o'clock Sri Lankan time. And just before I introduce our today's speaker, I have to state a very big thank you to the contributors so far with their knowledge. And I can say that people are now trying to study and look at the posts that we made online. So basically, LEADS is an acronym, and our function is mainly an educational charity. And we learn from each other, and we welcome any of you to share your expertise and evidence. And this will educate ourselves among the whole general population and using whatever we can. At the moment, we are doing these discussions and videos online. And that will help us assess more logically with good background knowledge so that we make decisions, better decisions as individuals in the country. So hopefully, if we all are doing that, we will move upwards and we will achieve better living standards. And our contact email address is there. And anyone who is contributing can speak in English, Sinhala, or Tamil. So basically, we are Sri Lankans working for Sri Lankans. We all know that there's a huge economic crisis at the moment, but that has also led to a huge energy crisis. And we cannot really go forward with both these things in hand. So there has to be ways and means of trying to get out of this trouble. In general, considering the whole factors that are contributing to our downfall at the moment, our recovery needs a three-pronged mission. We'll have to reduce the wastage, particularly about the way we use public money. And one of the main things that we have to address there is corruption. Then research and innovation is extremely important, not to find answer to the world's problems, but to find answer to our problems. That's how it will escalate into become important things in the world stage. And that has to be obstacle-free, which I can talk about later on at some point. Increase productivity. We have to increase productivity as a nation. And education is one at all levels, not just A-level, O-level. And then energy. I mean, without energy, we can't be productive. Now, that is what we are going to focus on today. And we are going to talk on time to get free of the grip of fossil fuels. And today's speaker is Mr. Parakrama Jayasinghe. And it's my pleasure to invite him to the stage and also give an introduction. Now, Mr. Parakrama Jayasinghe is a chartered mechanical engineer and a proud alumnus of the University of Peradeniya. He's a fellow of the Institute of Engineers of Sri Lanka and a member of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, London. He has held prestigious posts such as the Director Engineering of the High Carb Group and Chief Engineer in State Engineering Corporation, and served several senior engineering posts in Sri Lanka and abroad. He is the immediate past president of the Bioenergy Association of Sri Lanka, which earned a reputation for creating awareness and interest in dendro energy in Sri Lanka, and represented the same organization as the Bio organization in the renewable energy cluster of the Ministry of Finance. He was involved in formulating the current national energy policy and the technology-based tariff structure for renewable energy in Sri Lanka. He was a member of the Board of Management of the Sustainable Energy Authority of Sri Lanka, a director of the National Engineering Research and Development Center, and an honorary council member of the Solar Industry Association of Sri Lanka. He has served the alternate chairman position of the Environmental Subcommittee of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Consultative Committee on the Research of the Tea Research Institute, and Industrial consultative committee of the University of Peradeniya and Moratuwa, whilst also contributing to the development of engineering education in the country. So you can see he's extremely experienced and very widely experienced, and will be able to share the knowledge with his past experience and so on the topic that we are going to talk today. So may I welcome Mr. Parakrama Jayasinghe.
Good, very good. Yeah. Well, I was wondering what kind of topic I should, being somebody who have been very much involved in bioenergy, and which I believe is our future. So I left it at that. But of course, I must be well aware of the present crisis that we are facing. By the way, there's no power in my home at the moment. You might not see me very well also because I'm having a single light, tapped off my car, and also a single battery-powered light. So that's all I have now. I was desperate when the power went off, how to get onto the internet and collect this one. So I'm working on a dongle. I hope the juice won't run out before the end of the session. So let's see. Well, that's a good platform to start with, I think, because it's time that all of us recognize the importance of energy and the fact that all of us should be conscious of what we should be. So let me see why my slides are not moving. Right. I would like to start by commenting on a few very basic concepts or ideas that we can't escape from. We talk about all manner of energy, from fossil fuels to bioenergy, this, that, and the other, even nuclear energy. But the source is the sun. You can't escape from that one. You might have to go a few million years when you wanted to relate it to the fossil fuels, but whichever way you go, it is comes from the sun. So our question is, do we wait 100 million years, or do we tap it now? I see Professor Dhammadasa here on this thing. I'm very pleased to see him. He will talk a lot about that one. But I'm trying to relate to our own crisis here in Sri Lanka, and the fact that it's a man-made crisis to start with, and also we are fortunate if we are clever enough, if we have the guts, I must say, we have the solutions also available with us. You see? Now, this is the reality. This is not true, not only for Sri Lanka, the whole civilization. We got trapped in this brief blip during a few short, a couple of centuries only. The human race or human civilization started maybe from the time that it discovered fire. Our source of energy was biomass, right? Of course, you would say animal power and this and that, but primarily, yeah, it is biomass. And you would believe it, I think it will reach that position also in not too far future. We are now trapped in this one, this short blip, and also already, as you know, it is played havoc all over the country, all over the world. And timely we realize that that is the reality and that we should get out of it. So again, going a little further, outside just the pure, but you know, you realize as the technologists or engineers or whatever, as energy, we tend to look at it as a very convenient thing, particularly electricity. You switch on light, put on a switch, then you get your light, and anything else for that matter. It is a very narrow point of view on that one, and from a country's point of view. So we need to look little further. You see, the conventional wisdom, when it comes to the economy, says that energy security is the most important thing. And energy, when demand grows, it also is congruent with the GDP growth. How can we look at it in a broader perspective and see whether can it give something a bit more? Right? So we are talking about a new paradigm. Now, from Sri Lanka's point of view, and I would say for many other countries also, power generation with indigenous sources by Sri Lankans. That's what we should be looking at, so that energy sector becomes a Sri Lankan industry. You see, unfortunately, we are not being in that position, and unfortunately, we seem to be losing our grip even more. If you do that one, what it means is that itself becomes a driver of the GDP. Energy industry itself is the driver of the GDP without just being a support or appendage to make the rest of the economy work. Now, what we are doing right now, of course, is we are helping other countries to grow their GDP because we are buying energy from other countries. We just get the energy, but all the benefits of economic benefits of it goes to other countries. You see, this is the true reality which people seem to ignore. And fact remains that Sri Lanka is so blessed with so many potential sources of energy that we can be talking about every rooftop being a power plant. For that matter, we are talking as a bioenergy enthusiast, every garden is energy plantation. So the concept has to be there, the consumer to be a prosumer. Right. Now, how to achieve this change? This change will come only if we make these decisions and we accept this reality. Independence, I don't say 100% independence. By and large, we should be non-dependent, which is exactly what has happened to now. We have become so dependent and we can't even have lights. So therefore, immediately goes on to say that maximization and utilization of indigenous energy, which we have in abundance. You see, people are reluctant to admit it, but even the foreign agencies like ADB and JICA, and they have done so many reports showing that how much we have. NER, for instance, they have shown that we have enormous amount of energy, indigenous energy. There are a set of people who like to sort of hide that, coming up with all kinds of arguments, all kinds of nonsensical reasons why we can't depend on it and why we should be continuing to depend on external resources for many reasons. I don't have to go into that one, right? Now, therefore, what I'm saying is, in addition to just the transmission and distribution, particularly in electricity, or for that matter, the distribution of other forms of energy like fossil fuels, it should be, in addition to that, the generation itself. People will argue you can't generate energy. You know, let's not go into semantics of it, but you know what I mean. You see, conversion of whatever the sources of energy into a form useful to us, either as electricity for electricity sector or even the fuels for the transport and various other things. Right, that should be a national industry. Now, when you do that, the spin-off benefits are enormous. You see, that is what I talk about the prosumer concept. Like, for instance, if we are using bioenergy, all the money we pay for the fuel remains in the country and it goes to the most deserving people. That's our rural poor farmers who have been kept, I always say this, kept in subsistence level by successive governments and their policies so that they remain in that, you know, recipients of Samurdhi and all that sort of thing. And Professor Dharmadasa will vouch for it. Rooftop solar is another aspect. You see, now, fortunately, we have about 35,000, maybe closer to 40,000 consumers who are now prosumers, including me. And Professor Dharmadasa has created villages of that. So that has to be expanded so much, which will make a very definite change. Now, when you're talking about bioenergy, I always talk about Gasifier, which is actually what Dr. Ray and my good friend Joseph promoted decades ago. It offers all the best resource for harnessing our bioenergy. Having said that one, people say, okay, you are talking about, when you are talking about biomass, you are talking about, destroying the rest of our forest too, which is not true. Even now, 43.5% of our total energy, this is, I think, recent, about 2018 or something. Before that, it was more than 50%, comes from biomass. Not only electricity, mind you, I'm talking about the total energy requirement of the country, including the Darakal you put on your lipper. You see, that is also energy. Or if you count all that one, is 43.5. And you see the other 45.3, that is the one that put us in so much trouble, plus the 3.95 of coal. You see, only a very small wedge of our indigenous energy is available for us, particularly to generate our electricity. So that is the reason that we are in present trouble. And also, you see, I'm a huge believer in electricity as our best form of energy, and which should be a major form of energy also in the future. Technologies developed up to now makes that so possible, so feasible. You see, right now, practically, I'll explain later. You see, I am 100%, not I wouldn't say 100%, nearly 100% consumer of electricity for all my needs. You see, and that comes from the sun. Now, again, I would like to highlight the value of this wonder tree, which is will give you both the energy security and also the prosperity of our people. You see, now, like I said, other experts have very definitely confirmed that our bioenergy potential is so big. You know, they say 2,500. We, of course, say if you have the guts, it can be as much as 4,000 or even more. But 2,500 is a pretty good amount to be looking at. And remember, it is firm energy, 24/7. You see, and you can have, say, 95% plant factor, as long as the wood supply is there. So that is the sad story is, since 2015, not a single plant was allowed to be built. Otherwise, we would have had at least 500 megawatts of dendro power, now firm power, not depending on the ship bringing you the oil or the coal. We would have been having our own share of firm power. You see, not during the day, not during the winter season, but also during the night also. But anyway, that's reality. Right? But we should keep that in mind. Now, this is what I say, what Chula said, the education is the most important thing. If you ask the man on the street, very few people will understand this. You know, however much for the last several decades, we have been trying to promote this idea and get it across. But when there are other forces which are trying to block that knowledge completely and block the development of the energy into a form that is visible, and when we start flowing, well, that's where it is. Anyway, now, right now, actually, today's lecture, because we are talking about all the energy thing, will take months. But then today, therefore, during whatever the time that you allocate to me, I would like to talk about the very, very important source of energy close to all of us. I mean, most of you who are abroad, of course, won't feel it, but here we don't know how we can cook our next meal. Very sad to say, the picture shown by Chula, people waiting queues, and unfortunately 2-3 people died, you know, waiting in the queues, which is horrendous, and also which should be utter shame for the whole country. You see, there's also avoidable thing. I said not only the shortage of gas, but the way they handle the distribution of what little that was there. Very definitely, we'll have to kick the LPG habit, and that is the easiest thing to do, because we have the resource on one hand, and also on the other hand, there are no state agencies with vested interests who can block it. But of course, it takes a bit of work, people to chip in to make sure that the resource is available, the type of stores are available, and also if knowledge is there, distribution and making available the fuel needed conveniently, all that should be there. And unfortunately, we have left this to this crisis moment, so people are in trouble. But we need to push that one very, very, very fast, I must say. Right. So what are we looking for is sustainable solutions for our cooking needs. You see, the sustainable solution, of course, if you are rich enough, and if you have solar panels on your roof, you can certainly use electricity. That doesn't harm the environment, that doesn't harm the country to generate that electricity, but you're using to cook your meal, right? But so let those people who can, we'll have to address the rest of the vast majority of the population who must have a viable alternative. Fortunately, technology-wise, some intrepid individuals have been doing this. Now, Nerd Center, I must say, did this one many years ago. They introduced the necessary stores, but being a government agency, they did not pursue it. So when the crisis hit, they are not ready. You see, although they gave license to various people, they did not follow up what are they doing. So when you go to the market, you find that very few stores are available. This one of the things, the green one at the bottom is one of their designs. There are other designs. So the one this called the rocket stove, perhaps, right? But the other one is a local product. They have improved it some more. And what you see in between is the best innovation, I must say. This costs, I think, less than 500 rupees. It used to be 200, but the demand has gone up. Somebody, I think, friend of mine is playing with it by adding a bit of airflow also. But even without that one, that's superb. It will do your job of cooking very, very easily. Particularly if you are not, of course, in a very confined space like in a high-rise flat. But I would say 80–90% of our people don't live in high-rise flats. You see, they are living in reasonable housing out in the rural areas, using something like that. But absolutely no problem. And the best thing is they don't need any external fuel source. You can just go out and cut a few branches of Gasifier from their fence, and Bob's your uncle. You see, so that knowledge must go, and they must realize that waiting in the queue is not the solution. I would like to pass on the message to all those people who are waiting in the queue to make a resolution that this will be the last cylinder I will buy. By within the time, say 1 month or so, that this cylinder will last, I will come up with a solution that I will never go back to that queue. How many people will do that? I don't know. If we can do that one, we are making that change. Right. Now let's see, what does it mean? Fuel for cooking energy. In 2017, it cost 35 billion rupees. Right now, very easily it should be double for two reasons. One is, the dollar is now double, more than double. For 2017, it could have been something like 130 or something like that one. Now it is close to 300. Right, so this will be easily, on the rupee depreciation alone, it will be 70 billion. With the increase in price, I don't know where it is, right? But the fact of the matter is that fuel would be still used by 65%, maybe 60%, or definitely more than 50% of the households, right? But unfortunately, what you see on the TV is that unfortunately few who got hooked on this non-sustainable resource for the very basic energy demand, energy need, are the people who are suffering, right? So they need to be told, they need to be educated. For God's sake, look otherwise. You say there are other ways of doing it. On the other hand, you see, we have, say, I would say, there are 2.5 million people, no more, much more than that. You see, we have 2.5 million households, I would say. So you are talking about 10 million or so who depend on, I'm talking about the 65%, right? So that alone would consume something like 1.6 million tons of fuel. So that might be scary for some people when you look at that number. But when you relate it back to the amount of trees or the area that you would need to generate that amount of fuel wood, is nothing. But most important thing is, if you get 50%, 25% of that 35 million, I would say not 35 billion, that might be more like 80 billion now. Then if we convert that into people who are selling fuel wood instead of selling gas selling fuel wood, the unfortunate few who doesn't have access to a few residuaries, then you are transferring all that money back into the rural areas. You see, those are the important things. That relates to what I said right at the beginning. The supply of energy, it should also be an indigenous industry, which will give benefits to our people. So they will provide the energy for the people who don't have access to the fuel wood, but then also they'll get an income. This is the simple fact. Now, this is what is ignored completely. You don't hear anybody talking about a biomass economy. Although it is nearly 50% of the total energy comes from that, but even central bank doesn't even mention it. So anyway, that's the reality. Yeah. That's a change I would like to see. I would always like to see this gentleman making that. Let me. Right. I hope you can see it better now. Right. That is the change we'd like to see. Now, most important thing is, after all, any change is driven by the economy. You see, economy, individual economy and all that sort of thing. Because of this crisis, which did not happen this month, it happened several months ago, as you would remember, more due to issues of safety and, cylinders, not quite cylinders, the ovens blasting off, people catching fire, and again, one lady died, I'm sure. There was a scare of using LPG. So that drove the people to go for fuel wood. But again, there was nobody in authority to say that there is a need for fuel wood. There should be some arrangements made for that. Nothing was done. So in town, particularly close to Colombo, you might be spending 40, 50, 60 rupees a kilogram for firewood. So what we calculated was the energy requirement of a family of 4 for a year. So at the present market price, even you go for firewood, traditionally or conventional firewood, you would need 70,000. So people say, my God, I will rather go and buy a cylinder of gas, which is true, looking at the number only. And similarly, kerosene was the next option people looked at. You say, no, there are no kerosene also. There are kerosene queues also, right? That early I calculated is just 77 rupees, but just a week ago, it went up to 120. So now we are talking about 43,000. What is the alternative? You see, like I said, people who are fortunate enough to have a rooftop solar, they certainly can go for electricity because it doesn't cost them anything. But anyway, if we are to buy electricity from CEB, I am scared to put a number there because there's a request to bump the tariff up by 500%, 450%. Can you imagine that? So therefore, let's not go that way until you get your own solar rooftop, right? But on the other hand, using Gasifier, using something like the Anagilip, what I showed you, that nice double-barreled stove, right? You can get your wood even if you buy it about something like 10 rupees a kilogram. So that will cost you only 6,600. But if you are fortunate to have your own biomass, then that cost is zero. You spend $500 and that's it. Now, in recent times, because I've been looking at, not only the fat dwellers, you see, remember, the high-rise buildings are occupied not by the super rich, but there are quite a lot of high-rise buildings occupied by poor people also. So their needs also have to be looked after. And they are constrained to have, they don't have a garden, so they are having a tiny kitchen. So what can they use? So therefore, I started. You see, it works beautifully. You see, making charcoal is not a big deal, and it works beautifully in any of the stores that have been introduced. So even if you put it as something like 50 rupees per kilogram, that will cost you only 18,000. That's 1/4 what would be spent for gas. But now I've been with my friend Joe, I have been looking at it. There's a possibility of having a bit of a hybrid. You see, some of the stoves that are in town, particularly the ones that were developed by NERD, you can have a hybrid of, say, 2/3 of it being wood, nicely dried wood, balance 1/3 only from charcoal. So the net cost per meal is going to drastically reduce. I'm going to push that idea very hard. So that is again is another alternative, right? So why are we here? You see, if you go around the country, you will see this shameful advertisement in the most rural areas. Very aggressive promotion by LPG. You see, from a very small fraction of the people who depend on it, you have now pushed it past the 50% mark, right? Which is shameful. And the government stays idle without even looking at what is the impact of that one on the people. Some of the recipient gets 2,500. Now the cylinder of gas is 4,200. We allow it to go that way. You see? And also there's some unsubstantiated propaganda saying using biomass is very bad for your health. You know, it will cause lots of health issues. Utter nonsense. You see, our kind of lifestyle does not create that. You know, I mean, all you people are not, even my grandparents, everybody, we had a push here. We are using biomass, even till recent times. I'll admit, I have also changed over to biogas, but to LPG. But that happened in 1970 when we had the limited amount of LPG coming out of our refinery, and it cost all of 35 rupees for a cylinder, right? Compare that with the present price of 4,200 and imported. That is the most important thing. That is paid for in dollars. At least we did not pay separately for dollars for the LPG because we paid for the oil only, crude oil only. Now there have been no attempt to make this change of debunking this kind of claims and getting back that we can get back to sustainable and safe and economical practices. So again, I blame my friends at NERD might be angry with me. They are at fault for not pushing hard of that very good technology developed. Right now, with the advent of the wood charcoal, you can get a stove which will give you, I would say, 100%, at least 90-95% of the convenience of using a gas stove. At, like you saw, 1/4 the price could be less even. Right now, that is the important message that we have to take through. You see, the type of things that are available. You know, Sri Lanka is, you know, also fortunate to have people who are very innovative. You see, the two bottom stoves are what was developed by NERD. First one was done about 2002 or something like that one, which was purely depending on natural convection. Because that time, of course, we did not have the type of spread of the grid, national grid all over the country. So there are people thought, okay, having a fan is not very productive, not very suitable. But later on, they developed the next one, which is very fantastic one, really fantastic stove. What, I mean, I don't know how many people who are there engineers, but the very important thing is, when you are talking about using biomass, you have to differentiate between just pure combustion and using that heat, either radiation or conduction kind of thing, direct combustion, right? And so that you need to have that flame close to the hot, and wood burns and gives you that energy. Yeah, this one works on a different principle. It's really a gasifier. You see, what it does is gasifies the wood, and the wood gas, what is called producer gas, is combusted to give you your heat. Now, the flame you see in the left hand, this thing is, you know, unfortunately, but the picture I'm showing you is not the local one, an imported product, but it was beautiful. You see, nobody would say that it's any different from using LPG. You can do everything you want with that. And it is gas burning there. So you have a gas cooker, really, not a biomass cooker. Now in that one, I tested out yesterday. is using that hybrid solution. 2/3 of wood and 1/3 of wood charcoal. You see, it works and the system is there. So solutions are there. And I must say, I must object to anybody saying that, are you trying to take us back to the Stone Age? You see, asking us to use wood for your energy. And those of you who might be from Europe would know that Europe is using wood pellets and so many natural products for their energy now. They prefer to use that one for home heating and all that. So, I mean, Sri Lankans usually wanted to ape the West all the time. Should ape that too, but they won't do that. They will use the most destructive kind of things that they can pick up from anywhere in the world. So this is the reality, but we are at a situation, maybe we are with back to the wall. This is the time we have to make that change and should come out